Hi, I'm Mark Stelter, Director of Community Association Lending here at Itasca Bank Trust Company. Even after 20 years, I wake up every day with the same goal: to make maintaining properties as stress-free as possible for property managers and board members of any size association. So whether you're a manager, board member, unit owner, vendor, or just someone curious about life inside a community association, join me as I sit down with guests from the field. Welcome to Community Association Insights. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural podcast for Itasca Bank and Trust Company. My name is Mark Stelter. I'm the Director of Community Association Lending, and we have developed this beginning of a series of podcasts to try and draw important information and events that go on within the Community Association of Chicagoland, just to bring pertinent information from experts in the field so that you can visit the podcast at any point, pick a topic, and just walk away with more information than you may have had at the start. Let me introduce you to our first guest, Cheryl Murphy, Executive Director for CAI Illinois.
Thank you, Mark, for having me here. I am so honored to be your first guest for this podcast, and I also commend you and Itasca Bank for creating this podcast and bringing the community together. As you know, our passion and mission is to educate homeowners, managers, business partners in the industry, and I thank you for helping in that endeavor.
Yeah, I just, like I say, when we thought about this, I truly mean this. I consider you to be the single most important person in the, I know that CAI covers all of Illinois, but for the Chicagoland condominium townhome, for the whole community association, I really think you're the most important person. And I say that not just because of who you are from a skill and talent level and your character, but CAI represents such an important piece of providing resources, bringing so many different industries together. But before we get to CAI, I want to let our audience know a little bit more about who you are personally. So maybe just give us a little background on who Cheryl Murphy is.
Sure. I mean, I'll get the question sometimes, how did you end up at CAI, right? When I told my mom 12 years ago that I was taking this job, her comment was, well, there's just a job for everything, isn't there? Because a lot of people don't know that this community association industry exists if you're not in it. So I've always been in a sales and marketing background, and at the time I worked for a CAI member business partner company, and I volunteered on what was then called the trade show committee. I'd been on that for about 4 years, and when I was looking for a new avenue, in my career, the executive director position was open, and I started talking to the chair of the trade show committee at that time, who was on the board of directors, and it just kind of went from there. And I think that my business background helps run CAI, like a business, but we are a nonprofit and we have that mission side to help individuals. So I really like bringing that into my career as well.
Yeah, so you had the 12 years that you've been with the organization, and then the 4 years prior. So that's 16 years. We've been a part of CAI for about 21 years, and in my prior work life, that organization was part of CAI as well. So, and what I think has happened as most organizations evolve. 20 years ago, it was a completely different organization, and I'm sure you probably remember or have heard some of the stories from back then. It was more of a sleepy organization. It had a lot of use to it. It did a lot of good. But when you came on board, it really transformed the organization, and I think that's a tribute to your skill, to your staff. And you've had staff that have kind of come and gone, but you've had some key members on your staff and the current group that you have. CAI Illinois is just an incredible organization, and I've looked through the awards that CAI Illinois, and I know you go to the national convention, I think it's called, on an annual basis, and the chapter and you individually have won awards in the past. What are some of the awards?
So from a chapter level, the thing I'm most proud of from a chapter level is we have the ability to submit to our national organization every year in 5 award categories. And so we collectively as a board and committee chairs will pick programs that we've done throughout the year to think, what are we the most proud of? What have we made the most progress in? What has helped our members the most? And we will submit those awards. And then they get judged, anonymously by, people. They don't know who's submitting the awards. But in any one category, if we score above a certain level, if we score above that level in 5 categories, we win what's considered an overall excellence award. And we've won that award 5 years. And that I'm the most proud of, because even if the individual award, we kind of got beat out by another chapter, it's showing that our chapter strength and the depth of our programming is really strong. And we get recognized by that from
Sure.
our national organization continually, and I'm really the most proud about that.
And you serve such an incredibly diverse community throughout Chicagoland. I mean, if you think about the Chicagoland Community Association, as a group, I mean, Chicago just to itself has so much character and so many different neighborhoods, so much history to it. So, our benefit from being a part of CAI, just as a lender, has been incredible. I mean, CAI has allowed us to be introduced to the referral sources that are so important to us. And really, the whole industry seems to revolve around the managers, which I think is a fair enough statement. In talking to the different vendors, talking to my competitors, we all look to the managers to kind of get us introduced to the end customer, which is going to be the board members and the unit owners that ultimately make those decisions as to who they're going to be doing business with, whether it's roof replacements or siding. Just not to do too much of a commercial on the bank, but we've been fortunate as part of a member of CAI to work and to kind of find our niche and work with associations of all sizes. We'll lend to an association as small as 6 units. And one of the recent developments that we've put into place is for any self-managed association having to join CAI as part of the condition of us extending the credit. And we did that not because there's a huge benefit to the bank. We did that because there's a huge benefit to the association. Talk a little bit about CAI National and the resources they provide, and then CAI Illinois and the resources that the local chapter provides, because the reason we require associations to join is there are so many different resources that you offer, and maybe walk us down that a little bit.
Sure. I'm going to back up for a second, because I think something you said about the diversity of the association, and I think as a nonprofit association, we're unique in the fact that we serve 3 very distinct groups, right? We have members who are the homeowners who live in the associations. They have one need, right? They want to protect their property values. They want to learn how to run their associations. They want to learn about, financials and rules and regulations and all of that. We have another group who are members who are the community association managers who manage those associations. They have a whole different need. They are looking for education. They're looking for credentials, certifications. They want to better their career. And then we have another group of members who are the business partners like yourself, who provide the product and services to that ultimate end user, but go through the manager to get to that end user. So, if I was the director of the American Dental Association, my clients would be dentists,
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
This is unique because there are 3 very different groups who have very different needs and reasons for joining the association, and we have to provide those benefits to all those different groups. So, and then go beyond that, and we have a national organization. So CAI National is based in Virginia. When you join the CAI organization, you actually join the national organization, And then from there, you choose a local chapter that you want to affiliate with. So you being in Itasca, you join the national organization, you select the Illinois chapter. Some other members have multiple locations. They may choose multiple chapters, and they go from there. The national organization has a lot of their own education. They have, they kind of run the certification and credentialing programs for managers. They have something which is probably one of the biggest benefits, I think, for the homeowner group is called the Exchange. And it's an online community where homeowners can go, or anyone, and they don't have to be a homeowner, can go in and type a question. And people from all over the country, all over the world, in fact, for the worldwide chapters can answer, and you get a conglomeration of opinions and answers for a situation that you might be going through.
Okay.
And that is a free resource to members of CAI, and that outreach, I think, is great from national. At the local level for Illinois, then you bring it down, and we do education programming, social events, networking events, webinars, magazine articles that are more related to the local flavor of the community association industry.
So with the certifications, because I know you have the business partner certification for companies like us that are working within the industry but not actually managing a property. But CAI also has several levels of certifications for the managers themselves, including the management firm as a company.
Yes.
Kind of walk us through what's the steps that a manager goes through, or what do those different designations actually mean to the manager?
Sure. So in the state of Illinois, first we'll start, a community association manager does need to have a license. So they start, in order to work in the industry, they have to be licensed.
And that's through the Condo Act. So,
Correct.
Right. So Illinois, just for the benefit of those that would be watching, Illinois has governing documents or laws that have been passed, in the Illinois Condominium Property Act kind of governs the condos, and then there's the Illinois for the townhomes and the co-ops and whatnot.
Right, the SECA. So that governs the actual governing of the associations.
And what's the SECA?
The state of Illinois, Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation.
Okay.
They're the ones that dictate that the managers need to be licensed in Illinois. So that is two separate things. SECA, oh boy, you're gonna community,
No pressure.
common interest, community association.
It's basically everybody
for
that's not a
townhomes.
true condominium,
Yeah.
because the designation is you can have a condominium. Even townhome style residential developments can be formed as a condominium, and they fall under the Condo Act, and then everybody else kind of falls under the
or the not-for-profit
the
Act
not-for-profit
as well.
Act. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm
But
sorry.
So for the designations for a manager, so they have to get licensed. So they take a class, and then they take a test. That test it's called a CMCA test. We're an industry full of acronyms.
Yep.
So it is the CMCA
Certified
manager of community associations. So by taking that test, they get their license, but they also get a certification. So they can maintain that certification throughout their career separately from the Illinois license. If they move to Indiana,
Oh,
they
okay.
can keep up that CMCA and
Sure.
keep that credential.
Okay.
The next step is an AMS, and then the highest level is the PCAM. So that is a professional community association manager.
Okay.
And that is a very rigorous program. There's a case study. They have to write some people write, it's a 200-page case study, and then it gets reviewed by people at CAI National, and it's a very elite group of managers that perform at that level and receive that credential.
And they're actually, I see that those people are recognized, at the different events. I think particularly at the year-end gala, we kind of recognize those people for the hard work that they're putting into it. Whenever when I'm talking to people outside of the industry, it's kind of humorous because people ask me what I do for a living, and I say, well, I'm a commercial lender at Itasca Bank and Trust Company, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. So they then go into, if they're interested, to go a little deeper, and they're like, well, what kind of lending do you do? And then I'll tell them a little bit about how we work with small businesses and mid-sized businesses, but we also have a specialty that we've developed for community associations. And I always ask them, you ever lived in a townhome, ever lived in a condo? And we start talking about the mechanics of living within a community association, the monthly assessment that gets paid. And I always tell them the same thing. I say, in about a minute and a half, you're going to be looking to get out of this conversation because this is not going to be interesting to you. And I'm usually right. But what I always tell them is I find it fascinating because the Chicagoland area has, you and I were talking ahead of time, and neither one of us, I think, knew the exact number, but the thousands of community associations that are just located within Chicagoland. Mm-hmm. And the idea that just like a single family home, those associations need to maintain all of that keeps the building together: roofs, siding, brick, elevators, down to the plumbing, the electric, all the different simple stuff. And so I find it fascinating. I don't know that anybody outside the industry might find it, but the people that do find it more interesting are the ones that when they move in to a condominium or a townhome.
Well, and like the interesting thing, I think, and this is an absolutely true story, some of the reasons why people who live in those associations get on their board aren't always the best reasons, right? This is a true story. A guy was mad that his neighbor's dog kept pooping in his yard, and he was going to make change. So he got on his board to make that change. And he may or may not have made that change.
Yeah.
But now he's in charge of hundreds of thousands of dollars of other people's money and has no idea what he's doing.
Yep.
So that's where we come in. We help educate them. In a situation where that association is professionally managed by a management company, they have that guidance. In a situation where that association maybe is self-managed, they do not have that guidance. And so we really appreciate from CAI the program that you've put in place requiring self-management companies to join CAI, not because we just want to jack up our membership numbers, but those associations truly need help. They need that guidance, and we offer that education, and we can help them through that process.
Yeah, and CAI brings to the forefront for the new unit owner or somebody that maybe has lived their entire life in a community association. CAI really brings to the forefront recent changes in the law, even ordinances within the city, because the city of Chicago has ordinances that could be completely different than the suburbs. I mean, there's so many more issues that go on in the city because of the nature of high rises, the nature of, Chicago's been around forever, so it's much older than you pick any suburb and maybe a townhome that was built in the 90s or the 80s. Chicago has buildings that are over 100 years old that have been converted into condominiums, and so they face a completely different set of issues. And what CAI, what I have found, does is it brings to light all of those issues that are out there: compliance with ordinances, compliance with laws, recent changes. And you were talking about as far as the dog poop. There's a story from even somebody that works at the bank that lives in an association, and they actually had the police that they called, the management company called it the police, which I thought was hilarious. And it was basically volunteers that were going to, kind of go around and make sure that when the dog pooped, you picked it up. So, case laws that come out. There's a lot of different case laws. Some are more notorious than others of different unit owners or board members that, just like you said, I find board members, they're a special group because they volunteer. I always tell the managers, I've never seen another industry where you are licensed, bonded, and insured, and your boss is a volunteer. And it's just so unique. And maybe a volunteer that only is there because nobody else would do it. And there's so many great board members that step up in the face of nobody else wants to do it, so I'm going to do it. And like you said, now they're in charge of tens, hundreds of thousands, sometimes more of this budget that they have to be in charge of and make sure they maintain. They have now all of a sudden they've become a fiduciary. They're in charge of this information. So if an association or an individual or a vendor were considering joining CAI, maybe walk through some of the events that CAI has, because there's so many events from January to December that CAI holds. Can you kind of maybe walk through the calendar a little bit?
Sure. And, I think depending on the group, some may interest you more than others. But CAI Illinois, we do about 60 events throughout the course of the year. And when I say that, that's more than one a week. That doesn't mean we're putting on 60 trade shows or, 60 galas. Our events range everywhere from our large conference and expo that's coming up February 10th, where we'll have 1,500 plus people there and 200 exhibitors and a whole day of education. That's huge. That's one of our bigger events. We have a gala in November. I'm not actually following the calendar.
That's okay.
Where we have up to 500 people attend to that, or a summer social in August where we might have 400 people, or our golf outing where we have 350, 400 people. Those are our large events, more social in nature. But in between that, we hold a whole series of education events. Some of them may be, we do a legal forum in April, and there may be 250, 300 people that attend that. We may also do a homeowner class very specific to rules and regulations, and we may only have 10 people there. So it's really everything in between. And even from the social side, we'll do a new member orientation and breakfast. There might be 20 people there. We do that a few times a year. So we do some things in person. We do some things virtually. Through the pandemic, everything was virtual, and then we learned that there were some pieces that just were much better suited to the virtual environment, and we kept them. Obviously, the social events, we want to keep those in person.
Yeah, and the events. I think the nice thing about the events is some are fun, and some are educational.
All fun.
Yeah, they're all fun.
Oh.
Right. Depending on who attends, but their managers are a fun group. I always tell the managers when I get a chance to speak in front of the managers at a CAI event, I go, it's like Christmas. I wake up and I'm in a room full of managers, which means there's just all kinds of opportunities for me to meet new people that are managing properties that we might be able to assist. But the fun events, the gala is such a nice time. You do the Toys for Tots for the Marines. We recognize accomplishments of individuals, and there's so many. It's like any volunteer organization. There's so many people that are involved, but who those people are that are at the core. The board does so much work, and then all the committees. I don't know that we could list all the committees. I'm on the magazine committee. With a really...
You chair the magazine. You co-chair the magazine committee.
I'm co-chair with a good friend of mine who's at a competitor, and I'm not going to give him the benefit of getting his name mentioned on my podcast, but he's a terrific guy. And so when we say co-chair, it means he does all the work and he lets me take the title of co-chair. But the magazine is just such a great resource. And to kind of elaborate a little bit on what we do on the magazine committee, we take a topic, kind of an overarching topic, and we write articles that, kind of have a theme to the overarching topic, but then get specific to events. And nowadays, a lot of the topics seem to be more towards being civil towards each other, having actual discussions without, getting out of hand, trying to stay on the mission of maintaining the property. But then we get into, all kinds of different insurance, wetlands, lending, financing, across an array of topics. And how often it comes out? 4 times a year? Quarterly. The magazine to me is like kind of a guidebook on how to run an association, because the topics, and I think on your website they can actually go back, right, mm-hmm. and see past issues. Yeah. So there's so much information that's contained in the magazine committee. There's a political action committee that helps to try and shape Illinois law.
Legislative action committee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that is key. And I'm sure you have to walk a fine line with the Legislative Action Committee, but What's the goal for the Legislative Action Committee?
The Legislative Action Committee, the goal really is to promote healthy communities, build better communities. And what they do is block bad legislation for community associations and promote positive legislation. So they don't follow a party line. So they will align with certain legislators on a bill. And, it doesn't matter what party they're for. If they are friendly to the community association industry, then we want to be friendly with them. And, so some years are big legislative years, and there's a lot of action and a lot of calls to action that we will send out to our members, and other years it's a little more quiet. Right now, the two kind of big hot topics are the solar panels and the electric charging stations. Sure. They're just, and it'll heat up, and then it will just kind of die down because something else, gets more important in Springfield. So, but we have a group of people dedicated to monitoring that, promoting or blocking. We have a lobbyist that we pay who works with all the legislators and just tries to help us build better communities in associations.
And not all the members are always in agreement. I remember even just back before licensing came into effect. You'd talk to even the attorneys. You'd talk to one attorney and they'd give you 10 reasons why licensing was key. You talk to another attorney, they'd give you 10 reasons why they thought it was a lousy idea. So even within the membership, you have to kind of walk that line between whose purpose are we going to serve, and like you said, it's better to go with the group.
Right. Well, and as politics, so sometimes we have our list of topics that we want introduced, or we have certain wording that we want placed into these bills, and then it's a give and take. Then, well, I'll take this part if you give me this part, and you have to concede on some things just to get certain things through.
Yeah.
It's Illinois politics.
Always fun. And so, getting back to the calendar a little bit, so another fun event, the golf outing, which is always near and dear to my heart, and that is widely attended. I mean, that's just a huge event. The chapter takes over Cog Hill. At least that's where it's been lately.
Yep.
What would the number be? I mean, I think you have to cap out at some point in terms of the number of
Yeah, we always
attendees.
Oversell. And and we do like a happy hour afterwards. So typically we end up having about 325 to 350 people in attendance throughout the day, so it's fun.
And that seems to be just more people that are typically comfortable within the industry. You want to be able to golf, although my golf game leaves a lot to be desired, but it's always fun. Get to see different vendors sponsoring holes. So what I always tell people is any event you come to, you're going to meet somebody who might be able to benefit your association. The trade show, especially because you just mentioned the trade show, is coming up on the 10th of February, Friday afternoon. There's still time to register. That, I think, again, just in my opinion, is kind of the capstone or the key event for the year, because somebody coming to the trade show can walk up and down aisle after aisle after aisle and just meet every single type of industry and vendor that might be beneficial to an association. And what are some of the educational events that go on at the trade show?
Yeah, so I mean the conference and expo is really near and dear to my heart. It was firstly my entrance into CAI, so I like it for that reason. But now on this side of the table, I like it because it is probably the one event that best provides benefits to all three of our membership categories, right? Because there is education, there is time for networking, there's the expo area, so there's selling going on in that. But so the education, we have a legal update, we have an insurance update. This year we have a session on time management. We have a session on burnout. Like, we're hearing a lot from managers and even just individuals in their personal lives. Like, burnout is big right now, unfortunately. So we have a session on trying to handle that, recognize it, and what to do for that. We've got a session on the difference between a reserve study and an engineering study. We've got a series, like a series where you don't have to go to every single one, but it kind of like they build on each other a little bit. So nice full day of education. And then we also offer a post-event, a 2-hour webinar couple weeks after the conference to just kind of keep that education going.
Okay. Yeah, and I've talked to managers, some of which are, they're just there every year. They just want to be a part of it. And then I've talked to some managers that are a little leery because there is a cost to setting up a booth and being there. But, what I always tell them is you go to any trade show on this level, you just won't find a trade show that has as much packed into it as CAI. You have taken, and your staff and the committee, especially the volunteers, that are volunteers that work at companies that are business partners or managers. That committee puts on, I think, a top-rated trade show. You walk into the trade show, and it just screams opportunity. And it doesn't always have to be just an opportunity for new business. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to meet new people. Certainly it can be an opportunity for new business, but there's so many different vendors that are there that even do business with each other. Like I say, we have a specialty in lending to community associations, and we lend all throughout Chicagoland. We lend, all the way up to the 2 state lines, Indiana and Wisconsin, and then we kind of, head out to 47 down to 80. That's kind of our core, the Chicagoland area. We focus on DuPage and Cook as our primary focus area. But I've met more managers and had more opportunities provided to us as the bank through CAI and really through the trade show and some of the other events. I try to tell them you're missing out if you're not there. So then we also do a summer event on a boat.
Spirit of Chicago.
Spirit of Chicago. That's always a fun event too.
Yeah, that's fun too.
Maybe talk a little bit about that one. That's more of a networking, social, let your hair down a little bit.
It's networking, it's a 3-hour tour.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we've never capsized on an island in the middle of Lake Michigan.
I said let your hair down. You said 3-hour tour. Anybody under like 40 is not going to
They're not going to know what we're talking about. Right. But yeah, another just fun social event. At that time of year, I think it's just, typically we try to have good weather and people come out and have a good time. And I see a lot of connections happen there, a lot of new introductions, because it is a little bit of a smaller space.
I was going to say, the trade show gives you a lot of square footage. The Spirit of Chicago, you got to like the people you're around.
But there's a lot of, I see a lot of new introductions in that one and new conversations. So yep. I like that.
And even over, if you look at, what COVID did in terms of separating everybody, I think about how many conversations and emails that I've had, and I'm sure you've had the same, where you may have talked to somebody dozens of times or communicated through email. And then you get to an event and they walk up and, everybody does the same thing at the trade show. They're trying to look at the person's eyes with one eye and then tilting a little bit to the name tag. and then you see a name and it's like, oh my gosh, I have talked to you or sent emails back and forth and we've never met.
Or I didn't recognize you outside of the square.
Yeah, with the video. So that's always fun. So we have the gala, we have the golf outing, we have the cruise. Any other events that I've missed that?
Not the major events, but I think that, I don't want to focus just on the social side because really a huge part of our mission is the education. So if I could talk a little bit about that, especially on the homeowner side, because, like I mentioned, I think that there are groups of people who are well-intentioned board members and they just need guidance and help and some education. And so for them, we developed a program called DECAL. It stands for Dedicated Community Association Leader. And it's essentially about 24 hours worth of education if they were to take all the classes. There are 7 core courses. And
it's an actual certification. It's an actual designation.
It's a recognition because we don't really, we don't have any authority to certify anyone in anything, but it's a DECAL recognition if they take it all. And but there are courses from understanding financials, insurance, rules and regulations. There's an ethics course. There's like an actual essentials, just kind of the basics of running your association. And so we have some people that take all of those classes, and then at the end of that, they do get that DECAL recognition. We have some boards who maybe their treasurer takes the financials course, and maybe their secretary takes the rules and regulations course, and maybe the vice president will take insurance or something along those lines, and they just kind of piecemeal it. So we have, if someone is a member of CAI, all of that education is included free of charge with membership.
Okay.
Non-members pay, a nominal fee of $35 per course. But so what we have a lot of companies doing is associations doing is putting it in their budget as an education line item,
Yep.
their association dues into CAI. So I've had many associations thank us for providing that. I had someone hug me and say that we were the the thing they've been looking for all these years.
Doesn't surprise me at all. And it kind of takes me back, you saying that too, why we made the decision to have self-managed associations become a member. And it just, for all the board meetings that we attend and the conversations that we're witness to and the decisions that are made and the statements that are made, and, I think, good Lord, you really need somebody to help guide you, because you're making decisions that are clearly in violation of, whether it's the Condo Act or just common sense. But there are and well-intended, board members that are doing their best to try and manage that association, but just don't have the tools. Yeah. And that's where I think CAI comes in and just provides a service that is truly unique. I mean, there's other organizations that do cater to board members and associations that are in the industry, and I don't want to discount them, but CAI really stands unique in its efforts and its goal to try and educate board members, unit owners, vendors, anybody that might be involved in the association. So if somebody, through maybe watching this, wanted to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about CAI Illinois, how do they do that?
Probably the best is our website. It's cai-illinois.org, and Illinois is spelled out, not the abbreviation. And my information is in the website, as well as all the events we've talked about. The different education courses are in there. Our events page lists everything that we plan to do for the year, or most of the things we plan to do for the year. That's been updated at the beginning of the year, so that's probably the best place.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about the organization, and I can't say enough about you. You have elevated CAI in the 20 plus years that I've been witness to it to such a professional, incredible level, and I'm really thankful for all your efforts, and I really appreciate you being our first guest.
Well, thank you. As I said, I'm honored, and thank you.
You bet. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody.